Hi everyone. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Emma Woods. I'm a chair and plural non-exec, and I was one of the 120 signatures of the open letter that was published today to say that I, like many other business leaders, believe that we need change, and a Labour government will provide that. And before we hear from Rachel, I just wanted to take 2 minutes because it's trust that Rachel Reeves is the right choice of Chancellor to lead this change that was fundamental to my support. And I wanted to share with you 2 ways in which she has won that trust over the last 3 years. And the first is that Rachel genuinely believes in collaboration with business. I've seen it firsthand. So we met back in May 2021, just after she was appointed as Shadow Chancellor. At the time, I was the CEO of Wagamama, and Rachel wanted to understand the challenges for the hospitality industry as they came out of the pandemic. And she also wanted to discuss, how we might together think about high street regeneration. And when I think back to that conversation 3 years ago, what I remember was just how curious she was about understanding what was getting in the way of growth. And I left feeling really lifted. But it's not just me. For the last 3 years, Rachel, Keir, Jonathan, Darren, and the whole business team have been having exactly this type of what I would describe as collaborative conversation with business leaders of all sizes across the political divide, amassing a bank of fantastic ideas and business goodwill. So that's the first reason that I will be supporting Rachel. The second is I admire her pro-growth approach. And it sounds simple, but if you've ever tried to hire for a great finance leader, what you'll find is it's very difficult to find somebody who has superb control discipline over your current business, but also the judgment and drive of when to invest and what to invest in for the future. And in my experience, it's only world-class financial leaders that have the ability to hold both these concepts, and Rachel is one of these people. I am particularly delighted because I support lots of smaller startup businesses that she is placing so much emphasis on startups and entrepreneurships. So collaborative, yes. Highly capable, yes. But the icing on the cake for me as a senior female leader and the mother also of 3 young adult daughters who look for role models is that in Rachel we all hope we will have our first female Chancellor of the Exchequer. Please welcome Rachel Reeves.
Good morning. In 5 weeks' time, the British people will go to the polls to make a profound choice about the future of our country. And where better to think about that future than here at Rolls-Royce in Derby. Away from the short-termism of politics, the pessimism of our present moment, here you have the very model of a great British business. A global brand synonymous with excellence that continues to this day to pioneer in new technologies critical to the challenges of a changing world. From submarine technologies crucial to defence, to the development of carbon-neutral aviation at the frontier of the climate transition. And a business partnering with homegrown small and medium enterprises throughout its supply chains, which has nurtured deep roots in this city going back more than a century. A business built on the foundations of a past in which we can take pride, with a vision of the future that we can invest our hope in. As Shadow Chancellor, one of the great privileges of this role has been to travel all around the country and meet entrepreneurs, innovators and business leaders all across the UK. In the most challenging of economic times, they give me immense optimism. Today, I want to put forward a simple proposition. That this changed Labour Party is today the natural party of British business. And I want to set out the central economic fault line in this election, the choice before the British people on the 4th of July. 5 more years of chaos with the Conservative Party leaving working people worse off, or stability with a changed Labour Party. I can tell you exactly what Rishi Sunak wants you to think on polling day. He's already saying it, that the plan is working, don't change course now, that the chaos and instability wrought by Liz Truss was just a blip, that the deep problems that we face are down to global events. They're not his fault at all. Don't judge 14 years on 49 days, he will say. I want to take that head on. Because while it is true that the crises we have faced are global in origin, our unique exposure to those crises, the reason that we have been harder hit than many comparable countries by the economic impact of COVID and then by inflation and rising energy prices, can only be explained by the choices made by Conservative governments here at home. And because while the Prime Minister wants this election to be about whether inflation is coming down this month, he omits to mention when it started to rise, on his watch as Chancellor. Even before the Conservatives, in their clamour to cut taxes for those at the very top, sent interest rates and mortgage costs spiralling. He omits to mention when it peaked too, on his watch as Prime Minister. And he omits to mention the families and the businesses dealing with the consequences of Conservative economic mismanagement today. Like the family I met in Redcar, the dad doing an apprenticeship, the mum working in a supermarket, who spend every evening talking about money because there's simply not enough to pay the bills. Or the small business owner in Milton Keynes, desperate to expand, but faced with a system of business rates that are stacked against her. Or just down the road from here, the workers at Alstom, some of whom I met just a few months ago, who are facing the uncertainty that results when a government is unwilling to take a long-term strategic approach in partnership with business and trade unions, the only responsible approach to economic policy. The Conservatives are insulting the intelligence of millions of people like these, forced to deal with the consequences of their failure. But we won't let them get away with it, because the Conservatives do deserve to be judged on their record of those 14 years. The general election in 5 weeks' time is a chance for the British people to pass judgment on 14 years of economic chaos and decline under the Conservative Party. 14 years that have seen taxes reach a 70-year high. National debt more than double. And the typical homeowner remortgaging this year paying £240 more a month after the disastrous mini-budget. Wages flat. Public services on their knees. Taxpayers being asked to pay more and more, and yet getting less and less in return. 5 prime ministers, 7 chancellors, 12 plans for growth, each delivering less than the last. To put it in perspective, if our economy had have grown at the average rate of OECD countries these last 14 years, our economy today would be £150 billion larger, worth £5,000 for every household, and providing £55 billion more investment for our public services. That is their record, and they deserve to be judged on it. The Conservatives have failed on the economy. The plan isn't working. And Rishi Sunak's decision to call a snap general election is the clearest sign of that. If he doesn't believe that his plan is working, why should you? And no matter how much they tell us that Liz Truss was nothing to do with them, their every action speaks otherwise. They haven't learned their lessons. They're singing from the same songbook. With the Prime Minister's priorities dissolving into thin air, what is his last desperate throw of the dice? Not to deliver on the promises that he's made over the last 2 years, but instead to offer up £64 billion worth of unfunded tax cuts. They offered up just another one last night, and the Conservatives cannot say how they're going to pay for them. What cuts will they make to public services? What other taxes will they increase? Or will they fund it through yet more government borrowing? And why should anyone believe them after, and I'll say it again, the tax burden has reached a 70-year high under the Conservatives? Be in no doubt, the single biggest risk to our economy today is 5 more years of Conservative chaos and decline. My ambitions for Britain are so much greater than that. I don't think we need fantasy economics to look and hope for a better future. Just look around us. But we do need change. Under Keir's leadership, we have changed the Labour Party so that we might have the chance to change our country for the better. To offer a government that is pro-worker and pro-business, in the knowledge that each depends upon the success of the other. A party that understands business, that works with business. I'm not one of those politicians that thinks that the private sector is a dirty word or a necessary evil. I worked in the private sector. Before entering politics, I worked in financial services in West Yorkshire. I know what a successful business can do for places like those. And I know that economic growth comes from success of business, large, medium, and small. Indeed, there is no other way. I'm not talking about the old trickle-down free market dogma of the past, but instead a new spirit of partnership between government and business, an approach fit for a more uncertain world. I know that there is no policy that I can announce, no plan that can be drawn up in Whitehall that cannot be improved through engagement with business. And our manifesto will bear the imprint of that engagement. I want to lead the most pro-growth, the most pro-business Treasury that our country has ever seen, with a laser focus on delivering for working people. Today, more than 120 senior business leaders have signed a letter expressing their support for a Labour government. Across the world of business, Labour is being recognised as the natural partner of business, the party of growth and the party of enterprise. A few years ago, you might not have expected to have heard these things from the Labour Party. Think how far we have come under Keir's leadership in 4 short years. If we can change this party to bring it back in the service of working people, if we can return it to the centre ground of politics, if we can bring business back to Labour, then I know that we can bring business back to Britain, to bring investment back to Britain, to bring growth back to Britain, to bring hope back to Britain. Because by bringing business back to Britain, we can deliver a better future for working people. Whatever ideologues on the left or the right say, it's not either or. This Labour Party understands that business success is crucial to good jobs, and good work is crucial for successful businesses. It is by bringing business back to Britain that we can create good jobs that pay a decent wage, bring in investment to build strong communities with thriving high streets, to put more money in people's pockets, and take pride in goods and services made here in Britain but exported around the world. Our plans for growth are built on partnership with business. A mission-led government prepared to take on the big challenges that we face and ready to seize the opportunities of the future. And a government that will build all its plans for the future on the bedrock of economic stability. It is clearer than ever that at this election, the choice is between Tory chaos and Labour stability. And stability is change. Stability so that we never again see a repeat of the mini-budget and the damage it did to families. Stability so that families and business can plan for the future. Stability of direction so we can bring together government, business and working people in common purpose to meet the great challenges of our time. That will be underpinned by robust fiscal rules to get debt falling by the end of the Parliament. I will never play fast and loose with the public finances, because when you do so, you put family finances at risk. We have started as we mean to go on. I have been very clear that every policy that we announce, every line in our manifesto, will be fully costed and fully funded. No ifs, no ands, no buts. That is the attitude that I will take into the Treasury, because taxpayers' money should be spent with the same care with which people spend their own money. I remember when I was growing up, my mum would sit at the kitchen table, combing over line by line her bank statements and her receipts. We weren't badly off, but we didn't have money to spare. To my mum, every penny mattered. And believe me, I understand that the basic test for whoever is Chancellor is to bring that attitude to our public finances. And stability will rest, as it always has done when Britain has enjoyed economic success, on strong institutions. I started my career as an economist at the Bank of England. I know why the stability that it brings and the independence from short-term politics matter to economic success and the battle against inflation. So Labour will not play, I will not play, the Tory game of undermining the Treasury or the Bank of England. And I will introduce a new fiscal lock so that any government making significant and permanent changes to tax and spending will be subject to a forecast from the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, so that there is never a repeat of the mini-budget. Stability must mean something else too, and it's something that I've heard from business time and again about how important this is. Certainty in our tax system, which is why we have committed to the publication of a business tax roadmap covering the duration of the Parliament within the first 6 months of a Labour government. And it is why corporation tax will be capped at its current rate for the duration of the next Parliament. That is the lowest rate among G7 economies, and should our competitiveness come under threat, we will act. Stability will be the bedrock of everything that we do. But stability alone is not enough. It is one central part of what I call securonomics, a new approach which recognises that our age of insecurity requires new answers to new economic challenges. So stability must stand alongside a plan to fix our weak levels of investment. Britain today is the only G7 country with investment below 20% of GDP. I am not under the illusion that government can fix this alone. The lifeblood of a successful economy is business investment. So investment will be delivered through a new partnership between government and business, embodied in a new industrial strategy and in a new national wealth fund, with government investing to crowd in tens of billions of pounds of private investment, to create the jobs of the future, drive down bills, and achieve energy independence for Britain. And we will need reform too. No more ducking the difficult decisions. No more shrinking from vested interests. No more accepting that this is as good as it gets. So we will reform our politics, pushing power out of Westminster, so our local and regional leaders can deliver for their areas. We will reform our skills system to give working people the chance to succeed in a changing world of work, replacing the apprenticeship levy with a new jobs and growth levy. We will reform our planning system, taking head-on the biggest obstacle to growth and investment that we face, and get Britain building again. We will deliver reform with security in work, with a new deal for working people. And we will forge a closer relationship with our nearest neighbours in the European Union to ease the burden of bureaucracy and red tape on British businesses, including a new veterinary agreement, an agreement on touring visas, and the mutual recognition of professional qualifications. Stability, investment, reform. You are going to hear those three words a lot from me because they are the ingredients of a genuine plan for the future, an alternative to managed decline. The reason that I can say with confidence that this Labour Party is the natural party of British business. The choice at the next election is simple. 5 more years of the vicious cycle of chaos and decline which the Conservatives have set in motion. Or a changed Labour Party, putting stability first, in the service of working people. We will fight this election on the economy. Every day we will expose the damage that the Conservatives have done and the further damage that they threaten to do. And we will set out Labour's alternative. 5 missions for a decade of national renewal and 6 first steps to point the way to a better Britain. Cutting NHS waiting times with 40,000 new appointments every single week. Launching a new border security command to smash the criminal gangs and to strengthen our borders. Setting up Great British Energy, a new publicly owned clean power company. Cracking down on antisocial behaviour, recruiting 6,500 new teachers. All fully costed, all fully funded. And all those ambitions built on the bedrock of economic stability. The foundation stones for a decade of national renewal. To serve as Chancellor of the Exchequer would be the privilege of my life. Not to luxuriate in status, not as a staging post in a career, but to serve. I know the responsibility that will come with that. I embrace it. I know that it will not be easy. It will take hard work. It will require harder choices. I am ready for it. As I travel around the country, I see great potential wherever I go, in dynamic great British businesses, like this one, in labs and classrooms in our world-leading universities, and in the talent and the effort of working people. It is time to unlock that potential, to turn the page on chaos and decline, and start a new chapter for Britain. Labour is ready. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a few questions from the media now. The first question is from Faisal Islam from the BBC.
Thanks, Shadow Chancellor. You don't seem to want to match the Conservative triple lock plus policy, so it's possible that pensioners under a Labour government on the basic state pension would have to pay tax. Is that because you think it's a bad idea, or you'd like to do it and we don't have the money? And could there be an emergency budget if you win before the summer?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Faisal. Labour are absolutely committed to the triple lock for pensioners, to give them that security that the basic state pension will continue to rise by whatever is greatest out of inflation average earnings or 2.5%, and we give that commitment. But today is just another desperate gimmick from the Conservatives. Even before today, they had racked up £64 billion of unfunded tax cuts, and last night they offered us another one. The only reason that pensioners are looking for the first time at paying income tax on their basic state pension is because the Conservatives lost control of the economy, saw inflation soaring, and they have chosen to freeze the personal allowance, not just in this Parliament, but going into the next Parliament as well. Now, I've been really clear, I want taxes to be lower, but I'm not going to make any commitment where I can't say where the money is going to come from. And on this one, the Conservatives have announced today the use of the money that yesterday they used to fund the conscription, the national service. So their numbers don't stack up. And unlike the Conservatives, I will never play fast and loose with the public finances. I want taxes to be lower, but I will only announce those changes when we can afford to do so. The next question is from Joel Hills at ITV.
Thank you, Rachel Reeves. Just to pick up on that, to be clear, are you saying that those who rely on the state pension will pay income tax under a Labour government? And can you also just confirm that a Labour government would stick to the freezes, to the thresholds and allowances to income tax for the next 4 years, please?
Well, Joel, I want taxes to be lower. But unlike the Conservatives, I won't make unfunded commitments, because the truth about unfunded commitments is that no one can have any confidence that you can deliver on them. Because when Liz Truss made unfunded commitments around cutting taxes, what happened was that taxes didn't get cut, but what did happen is that mortgage rates and interest rates went through the roof. So no one should believe these unfunded commitments from the Conservative Party today. I want taxes to be lower. I want working people and pensioners to have more of their own money in their pockets. But the truth is, the only way that we can deliver that is through growing the economy. And that's why the policies that I've set out today, the vision that I've set out today, is all about growing our economy so that we can afford to sustainably cut taxes, including for pensioners, and have the money to invest in our crucial frontline public services.
Freeze, is that right?
We want taxes to come down, but we can't announce those reductions in tax unless we say where the money is going to come from. And that is the crucial difference between Labour and the Conservatives. Rishi Sunak is singing from the same songbook as Liz Truss, with making unfunded commitments around tax. That is the road to economic ruin. I will never play fast and loose with the public finances, because when you do so, it is the finances of ordinary families and pensioners who are most at risk, and I will never take those risks. A question now from Sam Coates at Sky News.
Shadow Chancellor, you're brandishing today the letter from 120 business figures. Several of those are no longer in top jobs. There isn't anyone from the FTSE 100 on it. You will have tried to secure the backing of those people. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm really proud of the backing in that letter from 120 business leaders today, from businesses big, medium and small, across a whole range of British industries. And to have some people sign that letter, including Malcolm Walker from Iceland, who in 2015 endorsed the Conservative Party. So we're really proud to have that backing from a whole range of UK business leaders across a whole range of sectors. The next question's from Helia at Channel 4.
Morning, Shadow Chancellor. This morning you say that this changed Labour Party is the natural party for business in Britain. But speaking to one major union today, they asked and told me there's already a party for business. It's called the Conservative Party. They want to know who's going to be the party for workers. Or don't you believe that workers are as valuable anymore to the Labour Party?
Labour are a pro-worker and pro-business party, recognising that you can't be one without the other. You can't be pro-working people unless you're pro the businesses that create the jobs and the prosperity to ensure that good jobs are available all across our country. And you can't be pro-business unless you're pro-skilling up and supporting working people to fulfil their potential. And so I say that those two things are two sides of the same coin. And it is because I'm pro-working people and I want working people to be better off that I want to attract investment to Britain. I want businesses to invest in Britain and to create jobs here in Britain. And that's why I've committed to being the pro-growth Chancellor and to make this the most pro-growth Treasury that our country has ever seen, because that is good for business and it is good for working people. And our New Deal for working people is a crucial part of our plan for growth to offer security for working people and wages that you can support a family on. But you can only secure those things if this is a country that is good for doing business in. And the endorsement of those 120 businesses today is great news for working people if Labour get into office. The next question is from Andy at Channel 5.
Thank you very much. Andy Bell, 5 News. Rachel Reeves, are you a socialist? And if you are, what do you understand by that term?
I've always called myself a social democrat, and what I mean by that is that I believe that children from whatever background they come from should get an equal start in life to the opportunities that our country offers. I believe in strong public services to support people all through their lives, from the cradle to the grave, and I believe that work should always pay and offer security to people. So that's how I would describe myself. But instead of fixating on labels, just look at what Labour governments have done in the past for working people and look at the aspirations and the vision that I've set out today and Keir set out in his speech yesterday. Christopher Hope from GB News.
Thank you, Shadow Chancellor. So you're not a socialist. Are you relaxed about company bosses getting very rich?
I want businesses to be successful, and that includes paying people at the top properly for the work that they do. But I'm also committed to turn the minimum wage into a real living wage so that ordinary working people also benefit when the economy grows and is successful. And it's why our New Deal for working people will also give to working people the security that should come and the dignity that should come from working hard, but for too many people doesn't exist today. Zena from the Derby Telegraph.
We're hearing a lot about change. Change is the key word in all of this. How quickly can you bring about change? You come into power potentially, but what can you do? What changes in business immediately? What's your first thing? We asked the question earlier about an emergency budget. Is that the secret to this? And how are you going to change things overnight?
Yeah. So I'll break that question down into two parts. First of all, what we'll do for business, and then also how we can improve our public services. We've committed to a reform of the planning system to get Britain building again. So updating the national policy frameworks and the list of nationally significant infrastructure projects so we can get Britain building again. Both housing, but also the crucial energy, digital infrastructure that we need to make our country a success. We've also committed to that reform of the apprenticeship levy to turn it into a growth and skills levy so that businesses can have that confidence to invest in their workforce. But the most important change that I can offer is to bring stability back to the economy, because it is this instability and the chaos that we've seen these last few years that have put businesses off investing in the UK. And unless we can bring that stability back, we will continue to chug along the bottom in terms of our growth and our investment performance compared to our competitors. So the fiscal lock, the respect for economic institutions, the robust fiscal rules, and the pro-business approach that I would take as Chancellor, working in partnership with business, is how we would begin to turn our economy around. I'm under no illusions about the scale of the challenge after the last 14 years, but I know that our country, our great businesses, and our working people have immense potential. We just need to unlock it. But beyond that, we also need to start to turn around our public services. And actually, strong public services are also crucial for a successful economy. That's why we've committed to the 40,000 additional appointments every week in our National Health Service by cracking down on tax avoidance and also ensuring that non-DOMs pay their fair share of tax here in Britain. And it's why we've said that there'll be VAT and business rates on private schools so that we can recruit an additional 6,500 teachers. Those are things that will be in our first budget, and we'll set out the date for that. You know, we want to get on and deliver the change that we're speaking about during the course of this campaign. Thanks very much to you, Zena. Lizzie Buchan next from the Daily Mirror.
There have been warnings that Labour's plans to scrap VAT exemption on private school fees will increase the pressure on struggling state schools. What would you say to the critics of that plan, and would you do an emergency budget before the summer so you could get on with this straight away?
Well, thanks very much for that question, Lizzie. The Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies has done an analysis of Labour's plans to put VAT and business rates on private schools, and they say even after the behavioural effects that this policy would raise £1.4 billion, and we will use that money to recruit the 6,500 teachers that our state schools desperately need. I was one of the children who, under the last Labour government, went to a school and was taught in porta cabins. Our library was turned into a classroom because there were more students than space, and there were never enough textbooks to go around. And so when this government says, and when Gillian Keegan says that children are happy to be taught in porta cabins, I tell Gillian Keegan that we weren't happy in the 80s and 90s, last time the Conservatives were in government, and we're not happy today for our children to be taught in porta cabins. I'm ambitious for all of our children, including the 93% who are in our state schools, and that's why this policy is so important, to give every child a decent start in life. And we'll start our first step on that by recruiting the 6,500 teachers to ensure that our children are being taught by qualified teachers in the classroom. That's a really important first step for an incoming Labour government. The next question is from Kumail Jeffer from the Daily Mail.
You've already said you won't make unfunded commitments on tax, but what is the first tax cut you would make for workers in particular if you do achieve economic stability in government?
I would like working people to be paying less income tax and national insurance, but unlike the Conservatives, I'm not going to make any unfunded commitments, because the road to ruin comes through unfunded commitments. I will never play fast and loose with the public finances, because the people that pay the price for that are ordinary families and pensioners who have been at the sharp end of the cost of living crisis these last few years. So when the Conservatives come along, putting more baubles on the Christmas tree, what you can see there is a repeat of the mistakes that Liz Truss made. It is dangerous, it is reckless, and it will result in higher taxes, higher mortgage costs, and once again putting pensions in peril in the same way that the Conservatives have done in the last few years. Jess Elgott, finally, from The Guardian.
Hi there. Rachel, I don't think I've heard you say in answer to any of the questions about whether you are planning a fiscal event or a budget before the summer. It would be great to know whether you are. And I also wondered if you've ruled out rises to corporation tax, you've ruled out rises to national insurance, to income tax. Given the state of public services in this country, are you going to set out in more detail, aside from any of the kind of minor tampering with VAT on private schools, exactly how Labour intends to fund the overhaul of these public services?
Well, thank you very much for your question, Jess. As you know, the OBR require 10 weeks' notice to provide an independent forecast ahead of a budget, and I've been really clear that I would not deliver a fiscal event without an OBR forecast. In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. We would extend the windfall tax on the profits that energy companies are making and use that to endow a national wealth fund, to invest in the low-carbon energy industries of the future, to preserve jobs and create new jobs, as well as energy independence and lower energy bills. We would put the VAT and business rates on private schools to fund that investment of 6,500 additional teachers in our state schools. We will crack down on tax avoidance and ensure that non-DOMs pay their fair share of tax by including trusts in a way that the Conservatives haven't in their plans for non-DOM taxation, and we would use that money to fund free breakfast clubs in primary schools, as well as our commitments around 40,000 additional appointments in the NHS and the emergency dental appointments as well. And also we've committed to ensuring that taxes on private equity bonuses are taxed appropriately. Those are the sum of the tax changes that we will be bringing in, because that is what is needed to fund the pledges that we have made. Thank you very much for the questions, and thank you everybody for coming along today.